This podcast is brought to you by Hills Community Aid and has been funded by Castle Hill RSL. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Good Men Don't Project. For those who are just coming in for the first time, my name is Levi. I'll be one of your co-hosts. And we talk about what it's like building respectful relationships and understanding the issues of domestic and family violence. So without further ado, today's topic will be about building respectful relationships. I'll pass it over to my co-host, Warren. Please take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you, Levi. And today is going to be a great day. We've got a topic which I think is one of those ones that is going to challenge us to think pretty seriously about how we make sure that we build good relationships. So, guys, if you're sitting at home, then if your relationship with your spouse or your partner isn't quite where you'd want it to be, I think today there's going to be some really good stuff, some good takeaways. So keep tuned, eh? We have a great guest today. So our guest today comes from an organisation that does a lot of work around providing alternatives to violence, which is very similar to what we're doing today, interesting enough. And so I'm going to let him introduce and tell you about that project work he's doing. So our guest today is in the studio. So Robert, welcome. We're glad you're here. Thank you for your time. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and also a bit about the work you do with alternatives to violence.
Hello, Warren and Levi. Thank you for having me here. Yes, my name is Robert, and I have been involved with AVP since 2010, 2011.
Okay.
And ever since I took the training and also became a facilitator and managed to be there and facilitate workshops for the past 10, 15 years. Yeah. There were a lot of learning during this time, and hopefully it's going to be useful today. In terms of the personal life, I come from Iran, and I've been here in Australia for about just over 18 years, and I work as a registered nurse. Any advices given here is nothing to do with my professional practice. It is the experience I learned from educations and also life experience I had.
Well, we're certainly going to appreciate that, Robert. So let me ask let's get straight into it, eh? So the first question is about how, I guess, respectful relationships look like today. If we have a bit of a stake in the ground, so that's what they look like. So how do you sort of see respectful relationships today?
Yeah. Thank you, Warren. Respectful relationships these days have some characteristics. Mm-hmm. For example, we have reciprocity, which means the support goes both ways. And it is not one way, because that's the characteristic of an abusive relationship. The other thing I can say about it means both people are putting the effort to support each other. That's in the reciprocity. Yeah. Next one I can mention is the equality. That's the biggest difference between now and the previous one, because equality simply means both people get a chance to make the decisions together and the voices matter. Yeah. We have also authenticity, or authenticity simply means that you are relaxing that conversation, so you don't have to hide anything, you don't have to lie. Yeah. That means you can be true yourself. Yeah. Any fear or any force behind it, it takes that authenticity away, mm-hmm. and it affects the relationship.
Sure.
Yeah. A few more parts also involved.
Okay,
if you guys are interested, you can say that.
That's a start.
Yeah. Should we go to
the next question?
The next question. Yeah. So I guess along those lines, how do you think your description differs from 10 to 20 years ago, and why? Like, what changes have occurred, I guess, from those 10 to 20 years ago? Yeah,
10 to 20 years ago, let's say in the past 20 years, everything has changed. We have social media, we have digital world. We also have, as a result of that one, we have been exposed to different cultures, and definition of relationship has also been changed.
Yeah.
The other thing I can say is social movements like LGBTQ plus rights. We also have mental health advocacy. Then we already talked about the digital, the innovations that we have. It all transformed the world, the definition of relationship these days. Yeah, if you want, I can explain, for example, in a basic way.
Well, it's certainly changed a lot, hasn't it? Yeah, when you stop and think about it. And if I stop and think about what it was like when I first got married, and that's nearly 60 years ago, and I think about how my relationships were forming in those days to what happens now, and the pressures, and I see my grandkids getting into different relationships, and I look at that and think, well, how miles apart it is because of all that social change and the things that you've just talked about. So let me ask another question just to delve down a little bit deeper. So one of the things that we're finding is that schools especially, they're doing a lot of work on building respectful relationships. So they spend a lot of time talking to children, even very early primary school, about respect. And of course, this is trying to balance out against the things of bullying and things like that. So there's a really good reason for that. But I guess the question I want to ask you is, what's the best advice you can give to a young man or a teenager who's just about to enter into society? What's the advice that you'd have for him to be a good man in today's society?
Today's children or teenagers are going to build our future world, and education is very important to them. In fact, if they are a teenager and they are trying to get into the workforce and in a relationship, I would advise them to take time to get to know their own limitations, their own boundaries, their own values. As a result, they can apply that one in their life. If I want to be specific, I would say spend some time to learn about emotional intelligence.
Oh, well, emotional intelligence. Now, I remember I used to be a consultant, and one of the things that was high on the agenda in those days, Levi, this is probably about 15 years ago, and I was doing some executive coaching, and I had people in those days ask me about emotional intelligence, and I didn't know anything about it. Emotional intelligence to me was about maturity, and it is to some degree, but can you unpack emotional intelligence so that we can understand it in a better way?
Yeah, it is pretty much the same as maturity, but in a new words. So emotional intelligence have about 5 pillars. The first one is self-awareness.
Sure.
So if I get to know myself, my limitations, my behaviors in particular situations, that can help me to not to expose myself to a situation that is going to trigger me. Then the second thing is by identifying that, I can do emotional regulation, which means the reaction. How am I going to show the reaction? Instead, I can pause and wait for a second before I show reaction. I may even not show any reaction. That's more like a maturity.
Sure.
The third one is the motivation. If I have a goal, if I have any project in place, I can utilize the same energy, frustration, anger, convert it to the energy that I can spend towards my project, life project, work project, anything. And the other one is empathy. Empathy is just listening, but not just the words, also the feeling beyond that words.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Finally, communication and cooperation together and in teamwork. We get the people in AVP workshops to do these things, but under different brand. They can develop their skills in all of these 5 things.
Yeah.
Because that's the important thing, isn't it? It's not just important that I have it if I'm talking to my spouse, but it's important that my wife has a degree of emotional intelligence as well, that we can actually work together and solve problems and things like that.
I feel like for me, being 10 to 20 years ago, I was still in school. And you're right, like there are those 5 pillars, and it's great. On paper, you would build a respectful relationship from that. But like you said, there's a lot, it's quite different now with like social media and everything that's changing around us. So personally, I felt like I was treading on thin ice a lot, where you don't know what you can do, what you can't do. Making mistakes was a common thing for me, because you just don't know what you don't know, right? And because we're all learning at the same time, it is quite difficult, I think, to navigate as a young kid. So yeah, I think we're saying it now, like this would be what helps to build a respectful relationship. But still, being a teenager or a young adult, if you've never been in these situations before, it can be quite difficult. So it is, I would say, what helped me was just educating myself a little bit, and knowing, I guess, what was okay, what's not okay, just, I guess, the ethical dilemmas you've faced along the way.
Levi, a question just forms in my mind as you're talking, because I'm interested in terms of someone who's at your age, and whether you've been exposed to the term emotional intelligence.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's for a long time I had no idea what it was. Probably not intelligent of me, but I did learn about what it was. I think 10 years ago I didn't even think that was a thing, maybe. But yeah, more recently, and coming back into studying, it's a big part, and like understanding what it is and what it requires. You kind of just take note every time a situation comes up. You kind of think back, oh, am I acting emotionally intelligent? Am I making the right decisions? Or am I just acting kind of brashly and not thinking before doing? So yeah, it has come up a little bit.
Okay, that's good.
But probably not as much as it should.
I like the description that you gave, Robert, for emotional intelligence, 4 or 5 things, and that really encompasses it. That's fantastic. We should move on to the next question.
Yeah. Sure, I'll get along with it.
Okay.
Okay. So we have been focused on advice to a young. Man entering adulthood. How would your advice differ, if at all, to what you would say to a man about to enter a romantic relationship?
So
tough question.
It's not. The principle is the same, because for me, relationship is any connection between 2 people. It can be romantic relationship, friendship, and the relationship between the employee and employer, or siblings, or the family members. All of them are relationship. But if we want to put it towards the intimate relationship, which means the romantic one, perhaps it may need some training as well. Yeah. I agree that people these days require training, especially when I look back many years ago. People would follow, we had a role model, man was a role model, and they had to take the responsibility about the situation, initiate. But these days, having equality, nobody really knows who's going to initiate, who's going to continue.
Yeah.
And learning a little bit more about equality as well as the emotional intelligence can help people to build that. However, being aware and responsible, for example, let me say, in communication, it can be open and honest dialogue, which they can sit down and solve the problem rather than just controlling the other person, which it didn't exist in the past 20, 30 years ago, generally. Now, the new days is pretty good. It is all made it smooth. People know how to be grateful. People know how to acknowledge other people's values. and respect their boundaries and even be vulnerable, because that is going to help them a lot, rather than just controlling the other person to build a relationship.
Sure.
Yeah, I think those aspects of sort of being respectful and allowing yourself to be vulnerable. Now, we've got a question later on about vulnerability.
Yeah.
So we'll leave that one till we get there. I think that's a really important one for men these days, because older men, anyway, probably see it as a bit of a weakness to say you're going to be vulnerable. But it's probably different for someone like Levi's age. But we'll come to that later on. So thank you for that, Robert. I guess one of the things that I remember when I was first married. So we were married in Queensland, came to New South Wales. We had no relatives at all in Sydney. I was transferred by my bank down here. So we were suddenly thrust into a new relationship, a married relationship, with no support or anything like that. And I remember having a conversation with a mentor of mine he said, look, all you need to do, you need to work on the foundation, build your foundation, and the rest will be fine. He never told me what that foundation was. He was a smart man because he knew I had to find that out for myself. So that's what I ended up doing, was working to find out. So can you talk about what you see as the foundations for a respectful relationship?
Thank you. I believe you already gone through that one, The foundation, as I mentioned, in today's world is the reciprocity, communication, and we said authenticity and taking responsibility. Like if I've done something wrong, I can say,
Robert,
sorry.
I noticed you looked at him when you said he set up the foundation and nothing on me. So you should be looking at me when you're giving this advice.
Then the other things I can say is getting to know my own values and setting the boundaries about that. Also understanding the other person's values and boundaries. So, and respecting to this one. Communication plays a role, whether it is body language or it is verbal communication. And in today's world, digital world also changed people's lives. People go and they seem to have a good relationship on the surface, but in the digital world, they are bullying each other. They don't like what they are doing.
Or vice versa. Online, it's they're beautiful, amazing couple, and then in real life, it's not so great. Yeah, people like to put a picture out that everything's perfect, right?
Very true. Very true. Yeah, and that is a new one. We didn't have it 20 years ago, and there are challenges that we need to learn about that one.
Early on, in some of the things that was important for me was about honesty and that building respect. Now, in some ways, that's now seen as a bit more of an old-fashioned approach, but I still think honesty and respect are really important in terms of building a respectful relationship. Is it still the case these days?
Yes, in the foundation of today's respectful relationship, I mentioned there is one part which is equality, that we hear the other person's idea and their decision. Also, authenticity, we said that having open and honest conversation with that person, which means a dialogue is not a monologue. The other thing I can say is if there is a pressure, if there is a fear, the person cannot really be honest. So safety matters a lot. It can be psychological, physical safety, or even digital safety these days.
Yeah, people need to feel comfortable in a relationship to share. But going back, honesty, that's still very much a thing in today's relationships for sure. I think you mentioned it was more of an older thing, but no, it's very important, I think, in every relationship, and the relationships I've heard about, a lot of it is just honesty and trust is a big thing. So that's continuing and hopefully continues on
because
the end of days.
Because if you have honesty there as a value, and trust forms as a result of that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the way I'd look at it.
Yeah.
That builds trust.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about vulnerability.
Yeah.
Levi, that's the next question.
You mentioned vulnerability. It seems as though there is a need for men to be more vulnerable today. I think a lot of men today would see vulnerability as being a flaw in their personality. So my question is, how would you encourage a man to be more vulnerable?
Vulnerability is an essential part of a relationship. In fact, I believe men in the past had traumatized as a result of being vulnerable. Let's see, what is vulnerability? Vulnerability doesn't necessarily mean sharing your deepest secret with someone. It simply means sharing the limitations, the fear, the things that is going to be impacted in that relationship. And the best way of using that one is using I messages to mention that one. It's really good. We also train I messages in the AVP workshops.
Sorry, what is iMessages?
I messages means, for example, I'm going to share one of my vulnerabilities right now with you guys.
Okay.
I'm scared of height. And what I can say it this way, instead of saying that I'm scared of height and every time you are taking me to these high places with good view, but this is scary for me.
Sure.
I would say when I'm at an altitude, it can be 2 meters or a mountain, I feel scared. And what I need is a safety of the ground.
Yeah.
It gives a signal to the person. In fact, I'm being vulnerable and I'm also setting a boundary. Next time when you're taking me to an activity, please take me somewhere that is not going to be high altitude. It's going to be somewhere in the normal level. So I used iMessages to be vulnerable, to say that I'm scared of height. Also to set the boundary and tell you guys, next time, let's set the activity in somewhere safer for me.
Yeah.
One of the ways I see it played out in society today, where men are being encouraged to talk about their emotions
Yeah.
a lot more, and that's not a normal thing for men to do. It is probably for the new age guys like yourself, Levi.
I think it's easier for sure, but there's still a lot of gaps where I was actually going to touch up on. I'll let you finish your point, but yeah, I think it's easier now more than ever, but it is still very hard to be vulnerable, I think.
I was only just going to say that getting men to share their emotions, like I have some guys come to my house every week just to sit down and have coffee, and they're all about the same age. But even so, today, and those guys have been coming to that table for probably 10 years, some of them still are very reluctant to share their emotions. They just push back. But some do, but some don't. And I can understand why it's such a big change. Interesting, there was an article here in the paper just recently, which I found there's an organisation in Victoria, I think they are, called thepolishedman.com, and they're raising money to end violence against women and children, domestic violence. And their headline is, "I wish men didn't see vulnerability as a flaw." That's what they say, and and it's a beautiful piece. And when you look at their website, what they're trying to do is just to allow men to be vulnerable and to talk about their emotions and things like that.
Yeah. I guess also with that, it kind of touches on, I guess it's important to recognize vulnerability in men and the suicide rates. So I'm sure you guys know some of the rates where there's a very high suicide rate for young adults, for men. I guess coming back to vulnerability in terms of a relationship, it's getting better, definitely, but I've also had instances, not romantic relationships, where I've been told to, be a man, and you've shared your one of the things that you're scared about, and in my head I'm like, oh my gosh, like what if someone says to you, oh, just be a man, or like toughen up and things like that. And I don't think it happens as much. But I feel like all it takes is one person to say something like that. And I think a guy can really reserve themselves when they hear something like that. Any form of vulnerability, I think is tough. And then when you put yourself out there and something like that comes up, Well, what do you even do in that situation? Like,
In old days, they would say toughen up. And
Yeah.
that's why men are tend to not to show their emotion, not to express them. As a result, it transforms into more anger and that can cause other issues in the relationship, whether at work or in a romantic relationship. I would personally, I'm happy that the trend is moving and people are now expressing their feelings and they are being more vulnerable. I believe new generations are more open to that one.
well, what advice would you give someone who feels like they can't share to their partner, where they are worried that vulnerability might be seen as a bad thing?
Yeah, they probably are scared. That's why they are not showing it. There are a couple of reasons they are scared. Either in the past they had a bad experience about it, or they are scared the person is going to use it against them, which happens sometimes, I understand. Or the person is going to leave them. And for me, I would like to think like this. If the person is not going to accept it or is going to leave me, it's better to leave me right in the beginning rather than later. So when they are going to start dating, why not to be the vulnerable? And if the other person really cares about man's emotion and the way that they show it, they would stay. And I think that's how they can build a better relationship, which is going to be lasting.
Yeah.
Robert, can we just move on to some other things? You've talked about some really great foundations, or foundational blocks for building a relationship. Maybe some other things that I've been tossing around my brain, things like curiosity, teamwork. You've talked about open communication, adaptability. What else have I got there? Independence, or having independence and having time apart at different times. So, do they, register for you in terms of really important things to continue to build that respectful relationship?
Yes. So I would like to say relationship is a teamwork. So it is not just one person by himself or by herself. That I have a proper, we use a proper structure for that one to build a community and to put them through activities, teamwork, and they go through conflict. And by resolving that, they build the trust. Of course, during that one, they also give themselves feedback. However, in terms of the curiosity, that is a technique I use because in today's world, if we want to connect with other people, we have to be curious into other people. We are talking about genuinely curious about the other person rather than being more judgmental or having some other ideas in the mind. Just be open with empty mind. Go and be curious and see what you can learn about that person. The other thing I can say about the personal time, that's very important. These days, young generation,
Meshing into one, right?
young generations, I like it the way that they look at it. They believe that I still need to have my me time. Yeah. I still need to have my own independence when I'm in a relationship, which I like it.
Yeah.
The definition of relationship is no longer two people become one.
Yeah.
There are three characters in a relationship. Yeah. It is me, the other person, and the relationship. Yeah. So they are separate entity. And depending on how much energy and effort they put towards the third one, which is the relationship, which is the shared one, they can build and develop that one. Yeah. Otherwise, they don't want to be touched themselves. Yeah. Everybody is independent. They like to have their own freedom. They don't want to feel like they are in a cage.
Yeah.
I find the one that's really intriguing for me is curiosity, because occasionally my wife will say something and I don't know where she's coming from, but I need to understand it so I can respond. So I get curious and say, well, why'd you say that or whatever, just to try and understand it, because sometimes she comes from a totally different place than I've seen it come from before.
Yeah.
So the word curiosity is sort of it's a little bit of an intriguing word, but I think it's a really important one.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the next question. It's about young boys these days, and
Sure. So many boys and men are grappling with what it means to be a man. Today, where traditional gender roles are dissolving, but no clear alternatives have taken their place, how can we empower men to embrace emerging forms of masculinity that are good for them and those around them, and so able to build respectful relationships? It's a loaded question.
It
It's
is.
a
It is
lot.
quite difficult because at the moment, because we are in the transition era,
Yeah.
which means in the old days we had men who was initiating, who was doing everything, taking responsibility for a lot of things, and after that, three big movements, which is equality, which is technology, also other cultural things. Now we are in the era that people don't want to take the old system, and they don't really have a clear, as you mentioned, clear alternative for it. These days, most of them have got this focus that let's take the equality and emotional intelligence together, rather than sticking to the old version. Instead of one person deciding this is how it's going to be, let's communicate and solve the problem together. And if we can't, we take it to a therapist or someone.
Sure.
What I'm trying to say is more equality, more communication, more the emotional intelligence part is expected
Yeah.
to have a successful relationship in today's world. And
Yeah.
they were saying on a podcast I listened to just recently, where they're talking about the youth suicide rates, especially of young men, which is sort of going through the roof, tragically.
Yeah.
And they were saying there that one of the drivers for that is that men don't have a good sense, the young men, of what their masculinity is these days. They're just confused. They don't know. It's not clear. And I hadn't heard that previously. I'd heard it being about men being unsure of the future and job-wise and all that sort of stuff. But I hadn't heard it referenced back to the issue of masculinity. I think that's really, I don't know, Levi, you're sort of in that sort of age, but a bit older.
Yeah, masculinity's, I guess, funny. I guess, yeah, I don't know. I think previously we always thought like the person who played sport was a bit, maybe not even loud. I don't know. I don't think of it too much anymore. Masculinity. I think it should just really be my 2 cents on it all. Is just be yourself. People just should stop caring about what you like to do. And if you are a good person, it shouldn't matter how masculine you are as a person. If in terms of respectful relationships, it doesn't really matter if the other person likes you for who you are. Let's say you're a sports player or a dancer. There's neither one is more masculine than the other in my eyes, and that's my point of view. How do I think society views it? I'm not too sure. I've kind of strayed away from the idea of what masculinity is. Like, is it a big, strong guy or what? I can't really think of it anymore. I don't like to, at least.
Yeah, but you don't. But unfortunately, in society today, we have those big masculine guys, the alpha males or whatever you want to call them,
Sure.
And you have podcasters who are very.
We're not alpha males? What?
No, I'm definitely not.
No, not either.
But you have for younger people, there are opportunities for them to be fed the old style of masculinity, and that sort of encourages them to move more that way. And I think that's a problem that the world faces.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. There's this guy. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of Andrew Tate. He pushes forth an idea of, okay, this is a masculine man, and he's got a lot of young people who really like him and big fans, and it's like, well, they're going in, is it the wrong way to look about it? I think so, because he is like, oh, a man should do this, a woman should do that. And yeah, it's funny. Like it's weird how I guess these individuals have such a power over the youth. And kids actually want someone like that to be a role model. So yeah, I guess it's a problem, but how do we even go about it? What do we do if the kids want that to be a role model? How do we say, oh, that's probably not a good idea?
I think you've opened up a whole topic for
It's tough.
another day.
Yeah.
Robert, so you had to say something?
I think in terms of masculinity, there is a misconception about masculinity and toxic masculinity. People, and then the toxic masculinity being under attack by a lot of organizations, including feminist and non-feminist groups. As a result, young people don't even know how to be masculine. I personally believe that having a particular goal in their own lives and just sticking to that one and getting their own pathways, but more achievement and building more self-confidence and self-esteem, they can have a better mental health rather than just feeling that I never accomplished, I am a loser, so I'm not a masculine. It can possibly impact their mental health.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know. I haven't read about the reasons beyond the young people's suicide. But surely they don't probably feel worthy. That's one of the reasons.
No, definitely.
Well, unfortunately, time's sort of beaten us again. Robert, look, I think just to sort of bring this to this conversation to a conclusion, I think the important parts that you talked about earlier on about building that strong foundation for a respectful relationship and the importance of continuing to work on it. It just doesn't happen overnight. It's something you've got to work on. And that was the message I had. And when you talked about all those various blocks, and I thought to myself, hey, and I thought back to my early days and the blocks I had to put in place, I just felt that, hey, this is going to be really useful for you guys who are listening in to take away and do some work on. So, look, Robert, thank you for your time. We really appreciate the time you've spent preparing for this and talking to me over the phone and getting ready to come along. We wish you well with the alternatives to violence. And also, I think we will put on our website somewhere a link to your organisation so that people, if they want to follow up and maybe attend one of your workshops and look at emotional intelligence or something like that, they will find a way through that. So thank you for your time. Guys, sort of say what's coming up. I guess this is the end of this conversation, but our next conversation is titled, It's All About Control. And what do we mean by that? Well, this is a conversation that's going to focus on abuse, understanding abuse, and also understanding domestic violence, and understanding that other word that's in our language these days of coercive control. Now, we have a university lecturer who's experienced domestic abuse in his personal life, but also has written many papers about it. And he's going to be here to help us unpack that and give you a good sense. So, Levi, that's what's coming up. What have you got sort of to sign up for today?
Thanks, Warren. And thanks everyone for tuning in today. We really appreciate your time and effort, and also Robert with your expertise. It was really great hearing your side of things and your take on everything. So thank you again. For those who are listening in or watching, if you would like any further information on what we've discussed today, you can visit our website at hca.org.au or contact us on goodmenproject at hca.org.au. That's goodmenproject@hca.org.au. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. This podcast is for information and educational purposes. The views expressed by the host and their guests are their own views and do not constitute professional advice. Listeners should consult professionals for specific advice tailored to their needs. We make no representation or warranties concerning the accuracy, completeness, or applicability of the information in the podcast.